Okay, I hear you. I
I
see
see
you.
you.
And we're doing this, I guess. So, the last video I did, I talked about masking and the different types of masking you could do. This video is like a part 2 to the last video because it talks about masking again. However, this is one that I swear everyone keeps asking me to make, and it's how I do my masking transitions. And when I say masking transitions, I mean like masking zooms from one person to another. I think another person asked me to do eye transitions, and just like how I just my general transitions I do. So in this video, this one's gonna be more talking about the zoom transition I do. So all the zoom ins and outs, from the background to the foreground, or etc. I might also include the eye transitions here as well, because that is a type of zoom. If there are any other transitions you guys want to know about, just tell me, and I'll do my best to explain them. This is a weird friend. Wait. Okay, so the first transition, masking transition, I'm gonna teach you is from going from the foreground to the background. So I use this transition so much. It's probably one of the most used transitions I use in my edits. So what you do is find the clip you want to transition from. I'm gonna go, and yes, it is Wanda. You're probably asking, Abby, why the hell are you using Wanda? It's because she's just a very editable character, right? Whether you like her or not, the aesthetic of the character is just very pleasing to edit. I'm tangled up in like 20,000 different wires. Holy hell. Okay. Basically, in your edits, you need to get your first clip, and then you choose another clip. I'm just gonna duplicate this and go to this clip, because why not? And then you just get your clips ready. So you have your 2 clips. This is the first clip I'm gonna use, right? And then that's the second clip I'm gonna transition to, right? So you just cut to how long you want it to be. I'm just gonna do it here. I'm not really making an edit right now. So what I do is when there's a beat in the audio I use, I put a marker down, and that's where the transition is gonna happen. The reason why I do this is because it helps me with the graphs, which I will explain later on in the tutorial, because graphs in these kind of transitions are so freaking important. Like, you don't even understand if you don't, not perfect, but if you don't adjust your graphs, it's gonna look really weird. You get your clip, and then important thing, you have to comp it. So Control Shift C or Command Shift C for Mac. Make sure that you click the second option, and have this click. So adjust composition, whatever the frick that says. Press OK. You do the same with your other clip, right? You'll see that the comps are comped to the size of your project file, right? For each clip. I haven't adjusted the clips yet. These are the default sizes for each clip. The reason why I haven't adjusted, let me just go back. The reason why I haven't adjusted these to size yet is because we'll adjust them inside the comp. So once you have these comped individually, you then click one of the comps, and it will take you inside. You will double click, and it will open a new tab, and you're inside the comp. You then go up to composition, right? And go to composition settings. This is where it's important to know what the size of your file is. So my file is this size, that 3840 by 2160, which is the standard 4K iMac size. So you need to memorize this number, go to composition, make sure you actually click composition settings, and then here is where you'll put those numbers in. Because I have the black lines in my file, I usually just zoom in so that I don't have to adjust it later. So that's that. And here, if you're gonna add Twixtor, this is where you will add your Twixtor, because we're gonna do masking. If we put Twixtor on this comp instead of comping it inside again and putting Twixtor here, it will mess up the masking. So before you go and do your whole thing, if you want to add Twixtor, now's the time you add Twixtor. So you just comp it again, effects, and put your Twixtor settings. I have mine saved because I don't like typing everything out. I realized I put the wrong one in. It's fine. It's not. There we go. And then here you go. Make sure that everything's mute. That's a big thing. Make sure your clip is mute. Oh, I forgot to put on my. Yeah. Nope. No. Okay. Not me getting lost in my own project. So you put a Twixtor on your clip. Insert the comp. Right. I'm just gonna let it catch so you can see that it's actually Twixtor. There. So now I have applied my Twixtor inside of the comp. As you can see, when you go into the main project file, you'll see that the composition has gone from this, like to fit the aspect of the project, to what it originally was. This is very important for the type of transitions that I do. And now this is the time for you to adjust, like so. And then you basically do the same thing to your other clip. Now that you have your two clips, right? Now you have your two clips. So you got your first clip you're transitioning from to the next clip. Basically, the type of transition the type of mask transitions I do are meant to mimic a camera moving from one place to another. So what we're gonna do is have it so she's in the foreground, and then we as the audience or the camera will then zoom into this section here where it's blank, and then it will reveal the next clip. Okay, so with that in mind, you will then need to mask masking. You will then need to mask around her. Here's a little thing that I don't think many people know with these kind of transitions, especially if it's going from one character and then zooming into this section, like another section, revealing another character. You don't have to mask the entire thing. Just mask what you need to mask. That's something I didn't mention in the last video because I didn't really need to. But with these type of transitions, you don't need to mask every single thing. So because the camera is going to go in this section, I can honestly just do this and only mask half of her, right? So just go around and click. Blah, blah, blah. Last video, I talked about my tips and tricks on masking, so I'm not going to go too much detail on how to mask. If you want to know that, just go to my last video. It'll probably in the description somewhere. I think me and my YouTuber era. Click the link in the description down below. Right, press B on your keyboard to go back to default thing. Press F and maybe put it around 15. I usually put around 15, so just to soften the edges. I'm just gonna disable that way first. So you have that, right? Right? Okay. Now what I do, there is another way of doing this, but this is how I've been doing it for a while. But what you can then do is just add another mask on top, right? Because we're going to be playing with these settings here. Mask opacity. So what you want to do is Control Shift N, and that will add a mask around your entire clip. You don't need to feather this. This will just help with the transition. And look at that. Look at this. See that? Under your mask opacity, this mask will disappear, but because it's on the same clip, the first mask you put around your subject will stay in place. So we're just going to keep that one there. And before you do anything, you'll need to keyframe your mask. If your subject is moving, make sure to keyframe your mask path. So I think I did one that is moving quite a bit. So I might have to keyframe quite a bit. Oh hell, she moves fast there. Give me a second. We're just gonna retract. Oh, not that one. Real quick so I can see. what I'm doing. Okay, now as you can see, I have now keyframed the mask. So when we play it through, yeah, it basically follows her. Right, I'm just gonna add this back. Not none, bitch. There we go. Okay, so now that's in place. What you then do is just position your clip. See these options here for the mask 2, that big mask that you put around the entire clip. Put it to intersect so you can so it hides the mask but keeps the first mask visible so that you can see what you're doing. Right. So now this is the important bit. The reason why we have this beat, as I said earlier, is to decipher where the transition happens. So you choose a point in your music. I don't have audio because I'm literally just doing this to show you what to do. I'm gonna put my transition here. You'd be surprised. What I used to do is start my transition closer to the beat, but I will explain later. It kind of makes it a little too fast paced. I'll do this in some cases if I have to, but if I can, I will pull the transition a bit further away. The start of the transition a bit further away than the point here. I have a little thing by my desk, and I have the mini Funkos just placed on top, and Sinister Strange Fell and Wanda and Valkyrie Corton. So usually before I would have my transition start closer to the point, but if I can, I'll pull it back a bit and you'll see why. Then you press P on your keyboard to open up position, and you click this time watch thing. Click that. Press S. Make sure that motion blur, this is very important, motion blur is activated. If you don't have it activated, it will look really choppy and you'll hate yourself for the rest of your life. Then you go past your point to where you want the transition to end. Press U on your keyboard to activate the keyframe timeline, and then you see these diamonds here next to position and scale. You click those and they will add new frames. I'm gonna move my bit here. Right, so now you've got points A and points B. You go to scale and you just scale it. Right. Maybe to like here. Quick side note, don't go too bonkers and go to like 1,000, 2,000, because depending how many effects you put, it will limit the amount of render pixels that After Effects will run on. There is a limit. As powerful as After Effects is, there is a limit to how much pixels After Effects can render at a time. So if you zoom it in way too much, you are basically gonna murder After Effects and it will not render, which was a problem I had with an edit of mine. I had too many effects on one clip and it just didn't render, so I had to render it in a quarter of the quality than actually. So I'm just gonna put it to like here. Now that you zoomed in a bit, you can then just move the clip to the side, resulting in this. You see, it looks really weird right now because we haven't graphed it. So what you want to do is get your mouse or left click and select all these keyframes. Right click, go to keyframe assistant and go easy in. Easy ease. It will go in this. What it basically does is that it will be slow at the beginning and end, quite fast in the middle, and then slow down again. Right, now we have to adjust these because this still looks pretty horrible. Before we go into the graph editor, right click position, go to separate dimensions, and what that will do, it will separate your keyframes of the positions to the axes. So because I'm working only in a 2D space, I have X and Y. You select the first set of keyframes and go to graph editor, and it will open up a new tab. Here, this is why I have the beat. This center is where the transition is going to happen. So when you click either two of the keyframes, you'll get this little like lever, and it will basically help you adjust the gradient of the graph. With these kind of transitions, especially with my style, I try to replicate what it's like in real life. So in real life, if you were to take like your hand and move it around, you'll notice that your hand doesn't automatically go fat. I don't know how to explain this. Your hand doesn't like go automatically fast, if you know what I mean. It will be slow at first and then gradually build up to that fast momentum. And when you stop, it doesn't just halt. It does slow down a bit. So that's basically what we're going to do with these graphs. We're going to mimic that kind of movement because we want to get some sort of natural sense to the transition, as if we are holding the camera going through the clips. So graphing is basically just deciphering the speed of how a movement's going to go. With these graphs, especially with the value graphs, you can adjust the speed graph, but you know, I mean, you can. If you can do both at the same time, that's great. I mainly work with the value graph because that's what I'm used to and what I was taught. But yeah, you can also adjust the speed graph, and that basically deciphers how fast the transition is going to actually go. But we're just going to work in the value graph for now. So with how this looks really weird right now, but with how these go, the steeper the line is of your graph, the faster the transition will go. When you're graphing, we want the steepest part of the graph to be somewhat in line with the beat, which is why we have this this marker, because that's where the actual transition will happen. So what I like to do is have like the beginning quite flat on, so that it eases into that slow, it will ease into the speed. So like there will be a little movement, and then it will slowly build up to the fast transition. And then at the end, I'll also flatten out a bit so that it will slow down at the end. So once, yeah, you can't really see here because I'm only adjusting one graph, but once it's all together, what I mean, I'll put a comparison at the end. So yeah, so you kind of have to like mimic an S shape, as you can see. It's a really weird S shape. It's like if you took Superman's logo and just stretched it, is how I describe it. It's basically the general shape you want. You want like that, like flat at the top and bottom, and then like a slide, basically, there. And then once you are satisfied with the graphs here, you then go to the next set of keyframes and basically do the same thing. With these kind of transitions, you want to try to get the gradient of this ramp, of this graph, to be similar on every single graph you make, which is why most people use the Flow plugin, because you can save, I'm pretty sure you can save graphs as presets and then you'll input them in. I know there is another free plugin that you can use where you can just copy and paste keyframes into each of these without actually distorting anything, and that will keep the gradient the same. Because if you can get the gradient to match up or be as similar to each other as possible, it will be smooth. Trust me when I say this, it will be smooth and it will be seamless. Go to scale. You see that with scale it goes the opposite way, but it is this essentially the same thing, where have it quite flat at the beginning and at the end, and then have the transition, the slope be somewhat in the middle of the marker. So when you scroll through, I think this is okay. Yeah, as you can see, look at that. Look at that, look at that! Look at that. Bam. I might actually adjust this so this is the stuff earlier than it actually does. So now, once you've like done all your graphs, right, you've adjusted all your graphs and it's like how you want it to be, you'll then see that, you can then see that the transition starts off slow and then it speeds up into this section, right? And that's basically step one. That's step one done. You then get your next clip right here. It's in the same way. Your clip that you're going to transition into, here, this is where you add motion tile. Teku? Yes. Yes, that's what the effect is called. It's called motion tile. You add motion tile to your clip, your secondary clip. Activate mirror edges and then put like 150, 200. I usually put 200 because there's no particular reason why. I just like the number 200. Anyway, and then basically you have to have everything lined up. So press P on the keyboard, make sure it's lined up with your other keyframes here, and then activate the keyframes for both P for both position and scale. And then you go make sure motion tile, make sure motion blur is activated here. Then you go to the end of your clip and then put those keyframes here. These ending clips, this is like you adjust to how you want your. This is the end of the transition, so I'm gonna adjust it so that one looks the screen there, like so. And then here is where like the start of the transition is gonna be. So have your first clip visible up here, and then here you can just adjust the clip so they kind of fit here. Did that? I haven't graphed it yet. So it'll look like this, right? And then basically again, you have to adjust the graphs again. Let me just highlight all your keyframes. Keyframe assistant, easy in. With position, make sure to separate the dimensions by right-clicking on position and press separate dimensions. And then basically you have to mimic the graphs that you put here onto here as much as you can. So as you can see here, we're gonna have it quite flat at the top, and then so it will slowly go into the ramp, like so. And then you just do that with every single graph. It gets really repetitive. You find it annoying. This is why most people have the Flow plugin. I don't, so we're just gonna do it manually. Then you can just scrub through and see. And if you've managed to match up the gradients as best as you can, I haven't here, so there's a lot I need to adjust. It will look seamless. It will look very seamless. This is the problem one. If you can get the Flow plugin, I recommend it. I recommend you do, so that you don't have to adjust these manually. I might have to. There we go. There you go. As you can see, we now have the camera zooming from the foreground to the background. Bam! 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 Right. So now that's done. Now what you want to do is click your top clip and press M to activate the keyframes, the masks again. And now we're gonna play with the mask opacity of the second mask. You know, this one I mentioned earlier, this big ass mask that you put. Activate the keyframe here. Go to the end of your clip and put the keyframes there. Make sure to change the blending mode of your mask from intersect back to add. Now you'll see here that the clip is gone. Not that the clip is not hidden. And it's in. So here you want the first keyframe to be 100. The next keyframe obviously is gonna be 0. So put that down all the way to 0. So that we'll have something like this, where that when we zoom in from the front, it fades, the background fades, and it goes to the second clip, but we still keep the subject in shot of the screen. I don't know what to call it. You can still see her basically. Anyway, you can then keyframe, highlight this, keyframe assistant, easy in, and then go to graph editor, and you can adjust the keyframes here. I'm gonna do that. I want this to be quite fast actually, so I'm gonna have it like this. There. As you can see, I still, even though that the gradient is much steeper compared to the other gradients I showed you, it still has that sense of like it's slowly easing in, then it goes quite fast, and then it ends. So this is what the transition looks like. This is basically the transition done. This is basically the transition done. However, the little touch, because I want that sense of realism to it, the little thing I do that I don't even think people notice, but it just satisfies me as an editor, I get fast box blur. This is one of the blurs that takes the least time to render, because it's such a small effect. You don't need to do this. I personally do this because I think it looks cool. Because when a camera moves, depending on the camera lens, I don't want to go into the scientific thing, but generally speaking, if something is focused on, like, if you have the subject focus and you have other things moving around, usually their kind of out of focus. So what I like to do is put fastbox blur on my top clip here. Keyframe the blur radius, just here on my keyboard. Go to the end of my clip and then set it to like 15 or 20. I say 20 and I go overboard. So that as transition moves along, she kind of goes out of focus, and then the second clip comes into focus. Here, again, I will keyframe this, otherwise it will look weird. It's such subtle effects, but it looks cool. It does generally look like a camera coming through. And then you can do it again on your bottom clip, but in reverse. So I just usually copy the keyframe over, copy this effect onto this effect, and then just swap the effects over, and then go back into Graph Editor and just adjust if need be. I forgot to mention, if you are putting a blur onto a clip that has motion tile, the blur needs to be above motion tile. But how After Effects works, it works in layers. Whatever is on the top, if you put another effect down, it will affect the effects on top. So if you're going to put a blur on this on a clip that with a motion tile, or any effect for that matter, make sure motion tile is like the one on the bottom of the list. All your effects needs to be on top. Otherwise, you'll get this and it looks really weird. And you'll result in that. And that's basically the zoom transition, the zoom masking transition I do. Yeah. But that's basically it. I probably overcomplicated this, but this is essentially the zoom transition that I always use in my edits. To zoom it out, I'll probably use the same clips again. It's the same notion. Okay, this next bit is basically the opposite of what I showed you. So masking zooms that are zooming out. So going from the background to the foreground. I'm using Valkyrie because Valkyrie does not get enough love, and I freaking love her. And if you hate her, I will find you and I will cry. Basically, it's the same process all over again. So you get your chosen clips, make sure that your pixel blur and stuff are activated, however you do your Twixtor, and you comp them, yada yada yada. Comp each one. Go inside the comp. Go to composition settings and change it to the aspect of your scene pack. Because mine isn't the 4K IMAX thing, I can just use the preset here. And another Funko has died. Who died this time? What the hell? Why is everyone dying? Who died? Oh, you. Oh, I don't like you, it's fine. I mean, look cool. You look very angry, though. Very angry. Mortar died. This poor boy. This poor man has gone through so much. Yeah. He kind of died. Why is everyone dying? Anyway. Get your clips changed. Go inside the composition. Comp it again once you adjusted it to size. And put your Twixtor here. Next one. And do the same fucking thing. Oh! And do the same thing. My days, that slipped out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I get smacked by the YouTube algorithm and my family. Why isn't my Twixtor copying over? With the zoom transition out, layers come into play. The clip you want to transition from, so from the start of your transition, needs to be at the bottom. And the clip that you're going to transition to needs to be on top. This is very important. If you don't do this, you'll get really confused. So I'm going to be transitioning from King Valkyrie from In Her Palace to when they're in... I forgot what the place is called. The place of the gods. So, now that you got your clips prepared, what you now need to do is basically start the transition. Make sure motion blur is on. Right, mask what you need to mask, because I want the camera coming from here to here over her shoulder. I'm just gonna mask only half of her. Oh, I literally chopped like her arm off. Now that you got like this section masked, click your clip that you just masked, Control Shift M, or however, whatever it is on the Mac. I don't know how much. And now you got activated this. Press M on your keyboard to activate mask path and keyframe masks again. Now that you got your mask keyframed, like so, put this on intersect. Change the blending mode of your second mask to intersect so you can see what you're doing. Then you press P on your keyboard, you click on your clip, press P on your keyboard, and activate the keyframes for both position and scale. So press S to activate scale. Then you press U so you can see the keyframe timeline. Go to the end where you want the transition to end. I'm going to do it around here. And just adjust the clip to how you want it to be. Like so. And then you go to the beginning of your clip where you put your first keyframes and zoom in and position the clip like so that you get this. Again, you go back and you graph them. The same process over and over again. I'm not going to explain this, but make sure that the general shape your graphs make are S's so that it gets that natural ease in, then the transition, and then ease out. I pull it out a bit this way. Once you have your graphs fixed for your top layer, what the clip is going to transition to, you can then just disable it for now and open up your secondary clip that you're going to transition from. Put motion tile, mirror edges, activated, and like 200 for output width and height. Go to the beginning of the transition, make sure that position and scale are activated in keyframes. Press on your keyboard to see the keyframe timeline and just, adjust how you would normally edit. Well, she looks so hot. Go to the end of the transition, and now you can reactivate your top layer. Will go on top, but that's fine. You're using this as a reference point, and then adjust the scale and position so that it's over here, like over their shoulder. Try not to show too much of the motion tile. The motion tile is only there to hide the empty spots. So now when you scrub through, it should look like this. It looks really weird right now because I haven't adjusted the graphs. Anyway, separate your dimensions and your position and highlight all the keyframes, keyframe assistant, and easy ease. And then you do it's all over again, adjusting the keyframes. I'm just gonna do it. There you go. So it looks like we're zooming in from the background to the foreground. Like so. Now, with the top mask, click M on your keyboard to show the masks again. You can just... No, that's not what I wanted to do. Your second mask, that big ass mask that I showed you earlier, put the mask opacity, activate the mask opacity keyframes. And basically put a keyframe at the start and the beginning of the transition. Like so. And then switch the blending mode of the second mask to add. The first, because we're zooming out, we want the first keyframe of the mask opacity to be at 0. So that you'll have something like this. Background dissipates as we zoom out. And then just keyframe it to be a similar gradient as the other graphs, that big old S shape. I can see that the keyframes of this is a bit off. Yeah. And then with the same aspect of the last transition I showed you, you can put a blur to it so it mimics real life, like the cameras and stuff. So 20 and then just graph in. Again, you really don't have to do this. I just do it because I think it looks cool. And to be honest, no one freaking notices it because it's such a subtle detail. Make sure that, let me just swap out. There we go. You have the zoom out masking transition. Once you like figure out the zoom transitions that you can do with masking, you can combine them and do some really cool camera work. Or like illusions of camera work, which I think is really cool. Yeah. Will I ever do an explanation how to do this? Maybe in like a null slide video. Those are all the masking transitions. Not all of them. The majority of the masking transitions I use. Once you've learned each transition, you, again, as I said earlier, you can combine them and make some really cool camera work. So a popular one I do, or like one I love to do, is have the subject zoom out through an eyeball, and then there's a null slide to the next clip, and then zoom back in again. So it looks like the camera's pulling out, panning, and zoom back in. And it's once, yeah. And if you combine all that, it looks really cool and smooth, and it looks like someone is walking through these clips, and it gives the illusion of camera work. If you want an explanation on something like that, just tell me, and comment down below any other tutorials you want me to do. The masking video I did last time and this video were the two most highly requested videos you guys wanted me to do. If there's anything else you want me to explain, literally just tell me and I will try to find the time to make it. Anyway, so I hope this was helpful. I hope this is what, yeah, I just hope. I hope for a lot of things. Anyway, I hope you guys found this helpful and you found this informational. Informational. I can't English today. Anyway, I guess hope that you guys, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't, I'm sorry. I mean, how else can you make a tutorial video enjoyable? It's just me explaining what I do in these videos. Anyway, so again, if there's anything else you want me to make a video on, tell me in the comments. You can either tell me in the comments, or you can message me on Insta or TikTok now, because that's now a feature, and I will try to reply to that, and I will try to make a video on it. So yeah, subscribe for more content, I guess. I hope you liked the video. I hope you found it helpful. I really suck at outros. So bye.